been wanting to film this video for such a long time, but I've just either not had the energy or felt like I've not had enough to say. First off, I just want to say excuse. I feel like being tired is just my personality at the moment, and I was going to wait to film this video until I was like had all of the energy so that I could look nice, make an effort with my hair and makeup, but that's not the reality of the situation right now. Ford started sleeping really well, so he goes to bed now. So 6:30 is his bath time, and then we put him into bed, and then he wakes up around midnight, and then again around 5ish usually on a good night. He has a bottle and then goes back to sleep. However, for the past week, I'd say, kind of woken up at 1 o'clock and then just started singing and not wanting to go back to sleep, so hence face, and I look incredibly pale. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all really well. Today I am doing I put a Q&A on my Instagram, just wanted to talk about like my pregnancy so far, maybe even talk about like Ford's birth and stuff like that. Again, if I'm like talking really slow, can't get my words out, I'm really out of breath, it's just who I am now. I'm almost 22 weeks pregnant, which I cannot believe I'm over halfway now. Just, it is flying by. So I think this video will probably be really random. So a few people asked like what I would put in my hospital bag. Now that I've already given birth with Ford, I literally packed a massive suitcase. I had a massive like hold-all sack full of snacks, and I'm sure I had one other bag as well, and I had my pregnancy pillow. So I took far too much with Ford. So at least I think for this one I will know how to pack a hospital bag a lot better. So I will probably do a full video on that close to the time. I'll probably do it around 32 weeks, something like that. So full term is classroom anything from 37 weeks, so I'll do it from about 32, I think. A few people have asked, was it planned and was I expecting to get pregnant so soon? So I got pregnant with this baby 3 months after I had Ford, so they will be exactly 12 months apart, which is the exact same as me and my older brother. So I'm literally following in my mum and dad's footsteps, which is really kind of cute. And the answer is yes, it was planned. The night that I gave birth to Ford, I said to Tony, I could never ever go through that again. It was the most horrific pain you could ever imagine. So basically, I've not actually posted a birth story on YouTube. I have talked about it a little bit on Instagram and TikTok. I'll give you a rundown of what happened with Ford's birth. So my due date for Ford would have been May the 1st. The midwives gave me a due date of April 28th. I actually went into labour on April 30th. He didn't arrive until May the 2nd on the evening. So I was in labour for 42 hours. I started a hypnobirthing course sort of midway through Ford's pregnancy. So I was all prepped for like a natural birth. It's going to be really quick. I'm just going to breathe my baby out and it won't really hurt that much. I went into labour midnight on the 30th of April. I'd actually gone to the toilet, and if you don't know, like if you haven't given birth, there's this thing called a mucus plug, which I'm not going to explain it, but if you Google it, it will show you. So I'd been to the toilet, noticed this, and then got back on the sofa and like started having contractions. At this point they were very mild, but they were coming every 20 minutes. So I was keeping an eye on like the timings of them. Obviously around the hospital, told them I was in labour. They said you need to wait until you're having, it might be 4 contractions in 10 minutes. I didn't get till that point until I think we left for the hospital about 8:30, 9 o'clock the following evening. So got to hospital May the 1st at about 9 o'clock I think. And by that point I was having strong contractions. I remember ringing the midwife while I was at home, and I had to time it so that I'd literally finished a contraction. She answered the phone, and then even whilst we were speaking I started having another contraction. Like, that's how quick they were coming. By the time the midwife saw me, they examined me to check how dilated I was. I was between 4 and 5 centimetres, and they said that I'd actually done really well to stay at home for that, like to get to that stage, which was good. And they literally said like I was ready to go on the delivery suite, which was amazing. And the midwife was incredible and had reserved me the room that had got the birthing pool in, which was like what I desperately wanted from the get-go. Walked straight from there to the delivery suite, was having contractions on the way, so I had to keep stopping. Got into the room, and the midwives, I sort of thought that I would just sit and like wait until I progress a little bit more, but the midwife said like you can get in the pool now. So I did. I got in the pool. It took obviously quite a while to fill up because like, I didn't realise a birthing pool is quite huge. It's massive. I thought it'd be kind of a little bit bigger than a bath, but it is huge. Got in there and it was just lovely. And then the gas and air. I honestly can't describe to you how amazing the gas and air is. Especially when I first went in, it literally took the pain away for me. And yeah, I would have been at 5 to 6 centimetres then. But then as I was in the pool, like the contractions were just getting progressively worse until they were coming like back to back. And I didn't realise at this point, but I'd been in the pool for 6 hours, I think Tony said, which is obviously a hell of a long time. And then I like lost all aspect of what was going on at this point. I think like partly because of the gas and air, I was having back-to-back contractions, so I was pretty much breathing in. And the gas and air on top of the pain from the contractions, it just sort of sent me to another dimension. And I was just totally out of it. And then I think I got to the point where I'd gone to Tony and just sort of collapsed in his arms. So he said to the midwives, he was like, right, we need to get her out. So I got out of the pool. I think I went for a wee, and then I just couldn't get off the toilet. The contractions, I know I keep saying it, but they were back to back. And then I was like crying for some more pain relief, so I had pethidine, which was probably the worst thing that I could have had because it just knocked me out. And I was still feeling the pain from the contractions, but I didn't have the energy to deal with it. So like my body wanted to sleep. My brain and my body wanted to sleep, but the contractions just kept coming. So I feel like, yeah, like I said, I didn't have the energy to deal with the level of pain. So for me, the pethidine made it a hell of a lot worse. But obviously everyone's experience is very different. Anyway, I think I stalled then, and I was stuck at sort of 7 centimetres for a very long time. I really need a wee. I just had to run to the toilet. I made sure that I'd had a wee before I started this video, and I was literally bursting 10 minutes in, so, and now I'm all out of breath. I can't even remember where I was. So yeah, I had the pethidine, which I would never ever do again. And then at this point, I think the midwives were getting a little bit worried and they were trying to offer me help. So they actually prepped me for a C-section. But by the time the theatre team were ready, I'd actually dilated to 10 centimetres. So it was time to start pushing. I was pushing for 2 hours, which obviously is a long time, and I could just feel like nothing was moving. And again, I was sat on the toilet, back-to-back contractions. I was pushing with each contraction, and I just didn't feel like the baby was going anywhere, no matter how hard I pushed. And as well, I also want to say, hypnobirthing course was probably the worst thing that I could have done, because I'd written this massive birth plan. I thought, basically, stupidly and naively, I thought I knew my body and I knew how I could birth a baby better than the midwives could. So I basically said on my birth plan, I don't want any intervention. Basically leave me to do what I need to do. I know what I'm doing, I've got this sort of thing. How wrong was I? So it got to the point where I was like on the toilet and I was thinking in my head like, I need encouragement and I need the midwives to tell me what to do, but I was that out of it. I was still on gas and air, I still had pethidine in my system. I'd not slept for 40 hours and I was just absolutely exhausted. I'd not eaten for that amount of time either. So, and I was just high as a kite, so I couldn't communicate to anyone. My hypnobirthing teacher actually said to me, the only thing that she wouldn't want in birth is a forceps delivery. And then I had the surgeon, I had a doctor come up to me and say, like, you really need some help. We think forceps is the best option for you. I was like, no, I don't want forceps, give me a C-section. Kept saying it, and they kept saying to me, his head is literally there. It would be more dangerous to do a C-section than it would doing like forceps, because they would have to go, obviously cut in and then dig down to get his head back up, whereas obviously forceps is just like to help guide the baby's head out. But because of what my hypnobirthing teacher kept saying to me all through that course, the idea of forceps was an absolute no for me. But luckily in that situation, Tony sort of talked me around and I ended up in theatre with forceps and an episiotomy. From what I thought would be kind of like a 6-hour delivery, a few pushes, no tears, to go from what I thought was going to happen to what actually happened. It was a lot to deal with. I spent a good few weeks just absolutely bawling my eyes out about it, because I almost felt like it was like I did something wrong as well. And I always think, oh, what if I'd have tried to communicate a little bit better whilst I was in labour, or if I'd pushed harder, I don't know. But I kept thinking what if for a very long time, and still do to some extent. But anyway, that was my birth story. He was a very healthy £8.12. I think the whole theatre thing as well for me was quite scary, because I got down to theatre. They gave me a spinal block, which quite honestly, as soon as that spinal block had been done, the instant pain relief, I was like, oh, thank God that is over. But yeah, that was my birth story with Ford. It took me a very, very long time to recover from that. So after birth, I absolutely wanted to breastfeed. So I tried to breastfeed. I couldn't get him to latch on, so I actually just expressed, and then he had the milk. I ended up getting so poorly. I didn't realise at the time, but now looking back, I was just getting mastitis constantly, and I was going to my community midwives at this point saying I really don't feel very well, and they were kind of just dismissing me. And then anyway, it came to, I think it was 3 weeks after my birth, so I had my 2-week midwife appointment. I told them I really don't feel very well, and they just sent me home with some antibiotics without even examining me. They examined down below, but they didn't examine my chest, even though it was pretty sore, but obviously I didn't know what mastitis was at this point. So yeah, they sent me away on my 2-week appointment with antibiotics. I'd taken them from, that was the Monday. On the Friday, I like took a turn for the worst. I sat on the sofa and I went freezing cold and was like shaking really, really bad. And Lenny had just got back from work and he actually finished early, which was like a blessing. I said to him, I'm just going to go and have a bath, hopefully that'll make me feel better. He kept saying to me, do not have a bath, ring the doctors, have some water and sit down. I said, no, I'll be fine, I'm just really cold, I'll go and get in a nice hot warm bath. So I did that and I got in the bath, and it was a really hot bath. This was the middle of summer, and I don't know whether you remember, but 2022 summer was boiling hot. and I was freezing cold, lay in a hot bath, and I was still shivering, probably getting progressively colder. And that's the point where I was like, something's definitely not right. So I rang 111, and the lady on the phone was like, right, we need to send you an ambulance. And at that point I was like, oh shit, something actually is quite wrong there. Because I'm the sort of person that doesn't like to bother people, and that I probably think that I'm being a little bit more dramatic than I need to be, but I clearly wasn't on this occasion. So I had an ambulance come, literally got to my house in less than 10 minutes. At this point I like could not get out of the bath, but I was not about to be seen naked by a load of paramedics. So got out of the bath, put trackies, t-shirt, hoodie on, went downstairs and just sat on the sofa. And then the paramedics came, took my temperature. I think it was like over 39, which is like through the roof. And they said that I was on an amber sepsis warning. I still don't really know what an amber warning is, but I know what sepsis is, which is literally poisoning of the blood. So I got sent in via ambulance to the hospital. They kept me in overnight on an IV drip, blah blah blah. Then I eventually was discharged. I think it was around 6 o'clock the next evening. But they sent me home with the same antibiotics that the midwives had put me on the week before. And so lo and behold, a week later the exact same thing happened. Went to the doctors and she examined me, said straight away it's mastitis. So at that point I decided like I could not carry on expressing and trying to give Ford breast milk, because it was literally making me so poorly. Like I could cry right now. Even the process of trying to stop my milk was really difficult, but eventually it did stop. I found that using peppermint oil and cabbage leaves really helped. I feel like I've just mumbled on about a whole lot of stuff, but hopefully it's not been that boring for you. So I think I hit around 12 weeks, was feeling a lot better, a lot more human. And then my mum said to me like, why don't I come over, you go to the gym, get out of the house, go and have some you time, feel like your old self again. So I did just that, felt like a whole new woman. So I joined back up at the gym, and then I think I was there for 2 weeks, and I said to Tony like, this feels fantastic, like Ford is an amazing baby. Was loving every single moment of motherhood, and I said to myself like, why am I trying to get back into shape when I know I want more kids? Why not just sort of have another one now and not get it out of the way, but you kind of know what I mean. So we decided to, and then literally caught straight away, thankfully. And then so I had a 2-week period from like being so poorly from Ford until like first trimester hit for me. First trimester for this baby was absolutely horrific. Like if you've not seen my first trimester video with Ford, basically Ford's pregnancy was probably the most perfect pregnancy I could have hoped for. It was so easy, I wasn't really sick, didn't really have many symptoms. I felt really good pretty much all the way through. With this baby, as soon as I fell pregnant, I felt like really sick straight away, vomiting a lot. It was coming out of both ends for quite a while, and then had a lot of stuff going on personally. So Tony's daughter's best friend actually died at the age of 17 in like the most horrific way possible. And then a few weeks later I actually lost my dog Henny, who I've featured on this channel plenty of times, in again the most horrific way possible. And then so that was all happening in my first trimester. A few days after I lost Henny, I had a massive bleed, and at that point I was like a wreck. I'm gonna try not to cry. At that point obviously I was expecting the worst. Was in and out of hospital for quite a few weeks. was bleeding for quite a few weeks, but luckily the baby was okay. I had quite a big hematoma. I can't remember exactly how big it was. So I think I was 5 weeks pregnant when the bleed happened. Obviously for the worst. Got to hospital and they sent me for like loads of scans and everything. So at this point the bleed was a lot bigger than the baby was. So I had to keep going back for scans and checkups. I was still bleeding at this point. So basically the midwives wanted it so that the baby outgrew the size of the bleed, so that basically if the bleed was to suddenly come out, it wouldn't drag the baby with it. So yeah, the baby did outgrow the bleed, and then I stopped bleeding. It was a few weeks later, and then I felt a lot better after I knew that baby was fine. I think it was my 12-week scan that I was like a lot more reassured, but obviously mentally I was still struggling a lot from like what had happened. I had really bad sickness, which just did not stop until probably I hit the second trimester in. I was probably feeling sick right up until I'd say 16 weeks, like really sick as well. So I actually brought myself the anti-sickness wristbands, which didn't do anything. Look at that filthy face. Hey! You're snotty, aren't you? Yes, you are. Scabby, scabs. He's just had some crisps, hence why the scabby face. But he was getting a little bit restless, so I've just picked him up. What's going on? What's that? Can you see yourself on camera? Oh, I'm just going to pop him in his playpen. Or his high chair. I want to pop him in his high chair, so that he can sit and watch nursery rhymes whilst I try and finish this video. Who's that? Say hi! Say hi! Oh, can't remember what it was. So yeah, I'm currently in my second trimester and I feel good. The only symptoms that I have, my skin is starting to get really dry, tight and itchy, so I've just been out and brought some body oil actually, and some bath cream, moisturising bath cream, body oil, and I've been told that E45, beg your pardon. I've been told that E45 is really good as well, so I've got some of that. And then obviously the tiredness, but I think the tiredness is more from the lack of sleep. I've also been really bad at going to bed later than I probably should be. So I was in a really good habit of sort of being in bed by 8, half 8 every night. But last night I didn't get to bed until probably 10, half 10. And then, yeah, Ford was up 3 times I think, and then at 5:10 this morning he just didn't really want to go back to sleep. But luckily Tony, bless him, actually said he'd just put him in his bed for a bit, because Tony gets up really early anyway to go to work. So he did that and I managed to get a little bit of a lie in. Yeah, so that's where we're at now. I'm going to carry on going through some of these other questions. A couple of people asked about, like, am I planning to go for a natural birth again? Quite honestly, I still don't know what to do about birth. I'm a little bit stressed out about it, to be totally honest. I just genuinely do not know what will be best for me. Obviously a lot of people have said, because I've already birthed 1 baby vaginally, my second will be a lot easier. But then I've also heard like people say the opposite. And then a lot of people have said they've had amazing C-sections, but I don't know how I will cope with having a 1-year-old running around and wanting to be picked up if I've had a C-section. So I just don't know. As you can probably tell by my energy right now, I'm a little bit like all over the place about the idea of giving birth. I kind of don't quite think it's, although I think it's sunk in now that I have to actually give birth to this baby, but at least I've got time to think about it. My thing with me is I'm constantly worried that I'll make the wrong decision, and that gives me anxiety. But yeah, that's kind of wraps it up really and brings us to the end of this video. If you've got to the end, thank you so much. I feel like I have rambled on this whole video and it's been all over the place, so thank you for bearing with me, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Also, I don't know why, but now that I've got a baby, I've started waving like this. So bye bye.